All right, gentlemen. A colleague of ours, Taylor, fellow associate at J&W, has assembled us a constitutional trivia Kahoot for us to play to see how well we know our Constitution, according to Taylor. David wasn't able to make it today, which is very sad. We wanted to show him what a Kahoot was. Naturally, we grew up with Kahoot because we're younger. We had Kahoot in our schools. He did not, because he grew up in the '80s before they had the internet. As far as what's on this Kahoot, I'm not sure exactly. We'll see. I know that I asked Taylor that I told Taylor she could put stuff related to articles, she could put stuff related to amendments, well-known court cases, and history. So we'll see what we get. But for now, let me throw this up on stage. Get the music up, which is not the original music. And is very sad. All right, let's start this thing.
Wait a minute.
And I'll be answering from my phone.
Okay, here we go.
45 questions, geez. All right. Wait, do we get to see the answers, or do I have to? Oh, okay, I have to hit next. So Kevin's in the lead with the good old 1787.
I misread it wrong.
What did you say, Sean? I didn't look.
I don't even know. I think I said the first option.
Is there any way for me to go
It was
back?
It was 1776, I think.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Oh, Declaration of Independence.
I'm doing it on a separate screen, so the numbers are so small, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm doing it on my phone as well since I'm hosting it on this screen.
Actually, no, I should do it on my phone because it's hard. I can't see it.
How many articles are in the U.S. Constitution?
Oh,
now this is the original music. Ooh. Okay. So who said 5 and who said 10?
I said 5.
So Sean said 10. The funny thing about the Constitution is, prior to the amendments, it's surprisingly short. I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I do literally keep the Constitution on my desk. So I'm probably a bigger dork compared to most people about this. So
at least I knew I could pass a citizenship test, so I know I can be a citizen.
That's right. Sean took the new citizenship test. He can pass it. In fact, I think I'm pretty sure you got 100%. So you came close on one question, but you made it in the end. All right. I knew what the first two questions were. I didn't know their answers, but I knew the first two questions were because of the way, when you open a Kahoot, it shows you the first two questions. But now, from here on out, I don't know what they are. So this is going to be fun. All right, let's do this thing. What are the first 3 words of the U.S. Constitution? In Congress assembled. Should have picked circle. It would have been funnier.
It's back. It's kind of the same.
There we go. Yeah, we the people. It's in the preamble. Out of curiosity, because I've heard different answers. This. Did they make you when you were in school? Did they make you learn the preamble? Like force you to memorize the preamble?
I think so.
I don't know if I was ever forced to. I know the preamble pretty well, but I don't think I ever had to recite it by heart.
It was a grade when I was in school. That was a grade. It's you had to recite the preamble to the teacher. This was a pretty core part of your civics grade, and it's still burned into my memory. Article 1 establishes which branch of government? The local branch, of course. Legislative. The local point is intriguing because actually the Constitution doesn't. I don't know if hopefully this doesn't come up later, but they don't act. But local governments have the framework in state constitutions and not the federal Constitution.
Which is
Yeah,
why they
like
can be different. Like they can have different
Yes.
structures.
It's the legislative branch. Let's do this. What do we call the first 10 amendments? The Declaration of Independence, obviously. Nice. We all know the Bill of Rights. All right. I was not expecting her to do 45 questions. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
45
I'm
questions.
curious to see what we're gonna get by
Might be
the
here a
end.
while.
Yeah, that's why I'm like moving through this. I'm intrigued. Which amendment guarantees freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition? This is a classic. The First Amendment's a classic. All right. The Constitution replaced what earlier governing document? Where is it? There it is. Sweet. I still find funny that one of the only things in the Articles of Confederation, like the only thing I can think of in the Articles of Confederation that survived to the Constitution was the name of the country. like that article existed just to give us a good name.
Yeah, the Articles of Confederation were like notoriously bad.
Yeah.
Like it's probably
Yeah,
one of the worst structures you could imagine.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said for like a confederacy, but that was not a version of it. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. It was
imagine
not
needing
usable.
like a passport to go to Georgia.
But I feel like it was mostly because the concept of the United States is like a actual like one nation with its own culture was not really codified yet.
It was. I think there was still an idea of we'll be like colonists, back when we were colonies and before King George was intervening, and we're gonna kind of just do our own thing. Article 2 establishes which branch of government. I'll give you a hint. It's not legislative. Executive. This article, if I remember correctly, is surprisingly short. It's really quite unusually short for how important it is in this day and age.
I think most of the presidential stuff is done through amendments. Like most of like the abilities and the restrictions in the office.
Yeah. Things the presidency is probably the thing in our government that's evolved the most over time. Does not resemble the way it used to be. How many amendments are currently in the Constitution? It's a good question. 27. That's right, 27 amendments, and we haven't seen a new one in a long, long time. It's been decades, many decades. I think I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if it was the early 90s or the late 80s that the 27th Amendment was passed, but it's been a while since we've had a new amendment.
The 27th Amendment is the presidential transition, right?
No, that's a different one.
Okay.
I'm not going to say what it is in case we see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In case we see it later on. I don't know if Taylor would do that to us. I mean, the most notable thing about the 27th Amendment is the convoluted history of it. Like, genuine, if I'm being real. What is required to propose an amendment to the Constitution? Okay. If this were, shoot, my ankles are broken. I don't remember how much you have to do. Oh, thank goodness, I got it right. Because you need because there's multiple ways to amend the Constitution, but it also requires states to ratify. Simply like putting it through the House is enough. The states have to ratify it too. So I was like, I remembered like the states, but I was like, oh no, do I remember how many in Congress? Yeah, probably one of the many reasons we haven't seen one in a while. It's because it's hard to pass stuff through Congress. The 10th Amendment reserves powers to whom? To the people and states. Sean, you're very fresh on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was this is a new question on the citizenship test, and please watch our video about the new citizenship test. We found a lot of interesting stuff. But the 10th Amendment is a new question on the new citizenship test, which is interesting. Is almost none of the other amendments have questions on the citizenship test. That one is just very important, I guess, to the current administration. So we got it on there. Fifth Amendment protects them from what? Ooh. Self-incrimination and double jeopardy. For me, I think there's this one like thing I'm dumb at when it comes to the Constitution is that for me, the Fifth and Sixth Amendments blend, and Seventh
Yeah,
Amendment
me,
kind
me
of
too.
they
I
blend
agree
together for me. It's
because
like
they
they're
concern the same
all
process.
right. They're all rights of the accused and about trials, but they all blend together for me. So it was good that only one of these was from 5, 6, or 7, or I would have probably been toast. All right. We've all been on a good streak lately. Which amendment abolished slavery? This is a common one. Very important amendment here. The 13th Amendment, baby. Sean. Just teasing. Hey, 15th Amendment is a Civil War amendment, so you're not actually far off. Well, post-Civil War, but there were 3 amendments passed.
That was my
Yeah, the
reasoning, I
Reconstruction.
guess, because I knew it had something to do around like a civil war, but
Yeah. 13th, 14th, and 15th were all passed like in fairly quick succession. 14th, 15th, I think were passed like right around the same time. But they're all kind of related to the same thing. Which amendment gave women the right to vote? The 19th. Sean knows about women, doesn't know about slaves. Just teasing you. All right, let's go. What is the only amendment to ever get repealed? Let's see, who was it? Who was it? Sean, once again, you were very close. The 21st Amendment was the one that did the repealing. The 21st Amendment repealed the 18th. And honestly, the 18th Amendment probably shouldn't have been an amendment. Should have just been a law.
It's kind of crazy that it was an amendment in the first place.
Yeah. Doing too much. Like, if there's one thing I'm looking back at, like, prohibition, it's like, they're doing too much. Could have just passed a law. There's nothing forbidding them. What is the Supremacy Clause and where is it found? There we go. Taylor really helped us out by giving us such diverse answers. If she said declares the Constitution the highest clause and then did a different article, that would have been more evil. If her goal is to be evil, she could take that note. But yeah, it's one of the only things in Article 6. Very short article, not much to it. What does the necessary and proper clause, or the elastic clause, allow Congress to do? Make laws need to execute its powers. So, Congress has powers, and I mean, this is actually something that you'll see in most amendments of the Constitution now. You'll say like, and Congress can enforce by necessary legislation, because they gave them powers, and then they had to say like, okay, you're allowed to pass laws that are in pursuance of the powers. What was necessary and proper was like the big thing in early Supreme Court cases. It was kind of the biggest deal at the time.
Like
The 14th
review
is significant because it did not. That's what it did. Did not repeal. Yeah. Define citizenship and guaranteed equal protection. And, birthright citizenship only originates in the 14th Amendment. So it's very important these days. And there's actually... What?
What is... Were there any major court cases before Marbury versus Madison?
Not a lot, but the one I can think of off the top, I can think of one, which was a case called Chisholm v. Georgia, and because it was the first court case that was hated enough to the point where Congress passed the 11th Amendment just to override it,
Okay.
because they hated that interpretation. But yeah, Marbury v. Madison though was like when the court really started to matter. Yeah, the Supreme Court didn't do a lot in terms of like major interpretations and additions to the law until
Yeah. Well,
Marbury.
I think because Marbury versus Madison, they gave themselves their own power.
Yeah, basically
Pretty
basically John Marshall said, my interpretation of the Constitution is that I'm awesome, and we've rolled by that motto ever since.
Oh,
Thanks, Kevin.
ooh. Wow.
Crazy point of conversation there.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the most important Supreme Court case of all time, right there. What was the decision of Maryland versus Board of Education? Yep, this is one of the other like most famous just of all time decisions that you will ever see, because for a while separate but equal was a constitutional thing, and this was kind of the first step to getting rid of that idea. In Miranda v. Arizona, the Supreme Court ruled that seems we all heard of our Miranda rights, which is those Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights that you hear so much about, that they all blend together for me. But yeah, this was a very important case when it came to not being pushed around by cops during interrogation. Case McCulloch v. Maryland was significant because for a lot of reasons.
Oh.
Okay, I think I know which one she's going for.
She was kind of evil with these ones.
Yeah. You know what? She was going too soft before. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Oh, federal bank. Okay. I think we were understanding it differently. This was well, first off, this is the first one I gotten wrong, because and she broke my ankles. Congrats, Sean. You did better for us. She broke my ankles because the case was about the state of Maryland taxing the national bank. That was what the case was about, and they did rule that the state government can't tax the federal government. That was one of the main things that they did.
But didn't they rule that the United States government could not establish a national bank, or is that like part of the
they decided that because the other important thing it did was it better defined the necessary and proper clause from earlier, and it said that the national bank was a necessary and proper, not because it's literally a necessity, but because it is in pursuance anyways.
Okay.
So congrats to Sean, and shame on me for misreading her answer. Which case established that separate but equal facilities were constitutional. One of the most interesting things about this case was Plessy's arrest was staged. Was one of the stranger things.
Because like Plessy was basically white.
Yeah, you would assume
he was 1/16 of African American ancestry.
Yeah, he was like slightly
intentionally. Yeah, he intentionally did it because he'd get arrested and could challenge it.
Yeah, and it was by a civil rights group who wanted to rule it unconstitutional. So one of the biggest backfires in American history. At least it didn't stay that way forever. But good Lord, it was there for a long time. Until this case. Roe v. Wade, obviously. Brown versus Board did this. Putting Korematsu v. United States on this is a really, if you know, you know. It's a very it's a very funny one to put in there. Famously racist or race questionable decision. Which amendment lowered the voting age? Oh, I forget this. I forget this.
I'm not too sure. I'm down to 2.
Let's go! The only way I knew it this time was because I knew what the other 3 were, but I usually can't remember which one's 25th and which one's 26th. Yeah, the 26th Amendment did that. Let's see. Which article describes how the Constitution can be amended?
Oh,
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I'm not good with the numerical stuff.
A V is 5.
I know Roman numerals, but it's definitely throwing me off.
Yeah. Think about Star Wars. Article 5, baby. Article 5. You know, and you know, this is not too far from what I was expecting, because for some reason in schools, when it comes to this document, they teach you so many things about amendments, but so little about the articles. And honestly, I find that so strange in so many ways. Because, like, I mean, look, amendments, I kind of get it. Because, like, okay, amendments are about your civil liberties. Like, the articles are strictly speaking about the government, right? What the powers of government are and, you know, how it runs. But and you know, amendments is more relevant to your day-to-day life because, you know, they're your personal civil liberties are all encompassed there. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like we overlook the meat and potatoes of the document sometimes, all the time. Which part of the Constitution was created to strengthen unity among the states? I guess I could see that being an intention. Article 4, baby. Article 6 is just that supremacy clause from earlier and like one other thing. Article 4 is also pretty short. It mostly just says like some things about like what are powers among states, what are limitations on states, really, because that was really an important thing. What is the only crime defined in the Constitution? That's a good question. I can tell you too that it's not. I don't know. Treason. Okay. Yes, because treason is in the 14th Amendment. Is a small like footnote in the 14th Amendment is about treason because it was that like insurrectionist clause.
But didn't they kind of like not do what they mentioned they were going to do? Like, because if the 14th Amendment is about citizenship, I'm imagining that they're saying they can strip your citizenship for treason.
Yeah.
I
mean, the 14th Amendment, I actually took a class at the University of Central Florida. It was American Constitutional Law 2 with Judge Miriam. And it was literally a class where all we did was 14th Amendment. But it's equal protection. It's due process, which has come to mean a lot of things. And also insurrectionist. But the insurrectionist one has never mattered that much. Like, even when it came to, you know, Confederate leadership, generals, all the kind of thing, most of them still managed to find a way to hold some office because they managed to get around it in most cases because the Supreme Court at the time was very friendly to them. And the only other time it came up was against now President again, Donald Trump. And once again, it didn't really go anywhere there either. Just not that used of a thing. After Article 5, how many states must ratify an amendment before it becomes part of the Constitution? This is the one part I do remember. Which is 3/4 of the states. And actually, you'll see a lot of times, you know, proposals for amendments. And I think this is just a good civic thing to think about is if it's a conservative kind of amendment, we're going to push by Republicans, start counting the number of blue states that you think would never vote for it. If you're exceeding, what would that be, 14 or 15? If you exceed 15, the amendment's dead. Same thing goes if it's something, you know, that's a bit more progressive. Like if you can count that many states that wouldn't do it under any circumstance, the amendment is dead. Because
I feel like
and this,
that's probably why there really isn't a whole lot of like partisan amendments, especially in the last like 50, 60 years.
and states are more intensely partisan than they used to be. Like super majorities are now very common. So again, if it goes against the whims of a party, chances are it's not passing in the state. And this is
Helen, what was
yeah.
the last like controversial amendment that actually had like a debate around it?
Probably the Equal Rights Amendment in the
The one that failed in the 70s,
which was in the 1970s and kind of dead in the 80s. It was it was an amendment meant to kind of be like a sequel to the 14th Amendment, but between sexes and gender identity.
Like I know it still technically is like exists, but it's basically it's in limbo. Like it's probably
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. No, I believe they put an expiration date on it. I'm not too clear on it, but we're not getting it anytime soon. It didn't end up being a thing. That was the last one I can think of. I mean, there's been some recently. Like there was a proposed amendment that would force the federal government to balance its budget before passing a budget, but that didn't really go very many places.
No one's doing that.
Yeah, no, the government was not going for that, which caused the constitutional reform basis the most implied powers of Congress. Necessary and proper, baby, from earlier. Supremacy just means that, like, when in conflict, federal wins. Sometimes I forget actually, right now I am forgetting what the full faith and credit clause was. I think it was about the states. But I don't really remember. So hopefully they should have asked that question. Gibbons v. Ogden. That the Congress had the power over what area of regulation? This would be... Okay, I feel borderline synonyms are happening here. Very mean. Assuming it is that, of course. Commerce, yeah. Because commerce is the name of the clause, the Commerce Clause. Commerce Clause is another one of those things that's really, like, alongside the presidency, that's just expanded more and more and more and more and more and more.
Because the Commerce Clause, like, it regulates a lot of things that have nothing to do with, like, trade and commerce, right?
Say that again? Yeah, I think you cut out.
Oh, like, if I recall, the Commerce Clause affects a lot more than just, like, trade and commerce at this point, because it has, like, jurisdiction over how states interact with each other.
Yeah. During, like, the New Deal era, they decided that it can sometimes apply to some forms of intrastate commerce. So, like, and sometimes even manufacturing. For example, monopolies. Like, there was a state that, for example, there was a case called, it was US v. EC Knight Company. And it said that actually monopolies were legal. Well, that the government couldn't do anything about monopolies, specifically the sugar monopoly, because it was all based in one state, which was the state of Missouri. But nowadays, the government, if something done in the interstate affects every state, can do it. And also there's this idea of flow of commerce. Like even if something's purely interstate, you know, if, for example, like shipping lines were to run through it, it's under the jurisdiction of the federal government. If it's like temporary lodging, like hotels, government, like federal government can intervene. So it's been expanded a lot to include some intrastate activities, but states still also retain a lot of intrastate powers within their own borders that the federal government doesn't touch. Which amendment was passed in response to the presidential election of 1800? Bonus points if you know why.
I know why. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah. So, but you know what, Kevin? Shoot for the bonus points. Why?
Okay. It was because originally the second most popular candidate would become the vice president, and the president was the first most popular. But they changed it so then the vice president is an appointee of the president, right?
Yep. It would be a joint ticket.
Yeah, because the 1800 election was John Adams. No, it was Thomas Jefferson as president and John Adams as vice president.
Yeah. Somebody was supposed to vote for, one of the electors was supposed to vote for Aaron Burr, but they thought they were the one that wasn't supposed to vote for Aaron Burr. So two Democratic Republicans didn't vote for Aaron Burr. So Yeah,
Oh,
Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr was not the vice president, which he was supposed to be.
wow. So like Aaron Burr only avoided becoming the vice president because of like a misunderstanding, more or
Pretty
less.
much. Pretty much. I mean, he didn't become vice president eventually. Then he wasn't because he started shooting. Because he started
Right,
shooting.
he
He
killed
started
Hamilton.
shooting our
Yeah.
founding fathers. Aaron Burr is a fun character. The phrase "privileges and immunities" appears in which part of the Constitution? Oh, is this the one that appears in the wrong article? I don't think so. I'm gonna go with my gut. Nope, this is the one that appears in the wrong article. No, oh no, I was getting mistaken with privileged speech. Amendment. Oh, I said amendment one. I was looking for article one. We all suck, apparently. Privileges. I'm trying to remember what privileges and immunities is. I think it's You know what? Let's go to Article 4. What the hell are they talking about? You're not Article 4. You're Article 7. Full faith and credit. Privileges and immunities. Citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. So your rights. So being a citizen of one state gives you the general get you citizenship in all states, or at least the. I don't fully know how this one works, or maybe it's if you're a citizen in one state, you get rights in other states. I don't remember exactly how they do it. It's a little messy. I mean, I guess it's not usually a problem because most states require you to be a United States citizen, so like it doesn't come up very often, but it can come up every once in a while, I suppose. Which Supreme Court case struck down Gun-Free School Zones Act as exceeding Congress's commerce power? I think I know this.
Yeah,
I know I've
got it for
read
process elimination.
Yeah, the process of elimination. I have read this decision before, but I couldn't remember if it was Lopez or Gonzalez. I think Gonzalez was multiple other cases. Enslaved people were not citizens and could not sue in federal court. And also, I'd like to point out she spelled his name correctly, which is funny because the clerk of the court did not spell his name correctly. The case is actually called Dred Scott v. Sandford, despite the fact that the guy's name is not Sanford. His name is Sanford, which is very strange. Little piece of trivia, but that opinion is. I had to read it in every constitutional law class I took because it somehow intervened in all of them. It is it's a weird case. I mean, it is definitely probably, I would say without doubt, the worst case the court ever decided. But there's like for layers of reasons beyond the fact that it's morally evil. Like, for example, he ruled, like Justice Taney, he ruled early on that the court had no jurisdiction in the case. And then he proceeded to exercise jurisdiction.
Wow.
He also tried ruling unconstitutional a law that was repealed ages ago, which is very strange as well, because it's not something the court has ever really done before since. Because at that point, there'd be no real standing on which is required to bring a case before the court. So there was some weird, wacky stuff that happened. Also, like the worst originalism attempt you've ever seen in your life. What does the full faith and credit clause require states to do? It's another part of Article 4. Respect the laws and courts' decisions of other states. So, again, not always a big issue, but there are cases where this is very necessary. And again, like thinking back to the Articles of Confederation, there was a problem of states basically fighting with each other. So this was just meant to kind of smooth that over. What does the 25th Amendment provide for? Okay, I know this one. Yep, presidential succession and disability procedures. This is the amendment relevant to Gerald Ford. See also our video where Sean and I went to No King's Day, where this was actually brought up to us somehow, in a very strange manner. But this was passed like in the nick of time because it was used only a couple years later. It was used to the fullest extent it was ever used. So the timing was crazy, like
Wasn't it
crazy.
used during the Reagan assassination attempt? Because he was in the
Well,
hospital and they had to like.
briefly. Yeah, for a short period of time. George H.W. Bush was president, and then he became president later because he was Reagan's VP. Which case upheld Congress's power to use the Commerce Clause to regulate racial discrimination in public accommodations? Hey, I was talking about this earlier. It's a very important case. Like that. Oh yeah. So yeah, Heart of Atlantis Motel v. United States. Commerce Clause gives Congress the power to, regulate the chain of commerce, including the transportation of people on official business. So they're able to, say because of the Commerce Clause, they're able to say that the 14th Amendment can be applied and regulated directly via public accommodations like motels. Very, very important case. Which clause in the First Amendment prevents the government from creating an official religion? This is the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Justice Antonin Scalia said that this was the most confusing little bit of the Constitution. And it is really, really short. And I do understand that point of view because it's not very specific in its language. And that makes a lot of people very weirded out about it. But we don't actually have a lot of Establishment Clause cases.
So does the Establishment Clause is it unclear because it doesn't actually say how much the government can involve itself in religion outside of it can't officially declare a national religion?
Yeah. Well, it says Congress shall make no law respecting any establishment of religion. That's what it specifically says.
Okay.
It is one sentence, and it says any
Yeah,
law. Like what
pretty...
defines? And we know because again, Scalia was very much an originalist. He really cared about how governments and citizens at the time interpreted the Constitution, not necessarily the intent of the people writing it, but at the same time, the people who wrote it and the people who understood it both include things like morning prayer, and things like there were elements of religion. They were just kind of scarce, so it's like okay, so it's not any law, is it? Right? Like to what degree? And it was if you're an originalist, this is a much irritating amendment to deal with. If you're a textualist, you're much better off, because you can just say the word any, and the word establishment, and the word religion. 5 questions left. Which case established that evidence obtained in violation of the Fourth Amendment cannot be used in court? And this was a case where they were looking for one thing, found porn, and then got the person in this case on a porn charge. This is Matt versus Ohio. Very strange case. One of the cases of all time. But yeah, no, another very important case. If they're searching for one thing and they find something else, then they didn't actually have a warrant or probable cause to get it. So yeah, very important case to know. If you were ever accused of something for some reason, potentially. Who was considered the father of the Constitution? Hey, this was on the citizenship test. One of the new questions related to this fella. And this was one of the accepted answers. And it is James Madison, who wrote most of the Constitution. Sean, you got this question right on the citizenship test.
Yeah, I know.
No.
But honestly, I'm not making excuses, but I have double screen up, so I'm looking at the recording, so it's even smaller, and I'm...
Oh, that... I see.
I'm not trying to make
that
excuses,
sense.
but...
No, that's fair. That's fair. I know you know this. That's the key. I know you know this. Which amendment limits the jurisdiction of federal courts in cases against a state by citizens of another state or country? Limits jurisdiction.
Huh.
What? I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know this one.
Okay, hold on. I think okay, I knew it was between the 20th and 11th because the 20th does like a random hodgepodge of things, and 11th grants states something called sovereign immunity. But I don't think this question correctly describes what sovereign immunity is. And this is that case Chisholm v. Georgia. What the case Chisholm v. Georgia meant is that what that case said initially was that if in this case it was somebody suing the state of Georgia, and Georgia said we're not entertaining your lawsuit against us in our own courts. They said we're not entertaining it, and then they brought them to federal court over the constitutional issue of can a state refuse to hear a case against itself in its own court, and the Supreme Court at the time said no, they can't. The 11th Amendment says that a state cannot be legally. They can refuse to hear a case in their own courts. That's what the 11th Amendment says. So now not every state exercises this right. Like, for example, I can think of one, Massachusetts doesn't really exercise this right. People sue the state of Massachusetts all the time. And Massachusetts will hear those cases against themselves. But other states don't do it because they just don't really want to hear it. They don't want to be sued in their own courts.
So you'd have to take them to federal court?
No, there's not necessarily. What you do is you sue somebody who works at the government related to your issue. So usually you sue the governor or the secretary of state. You sue an individual rather than the state itself.
Huh. But it would make like the name of the case, like that's why some places, some cases you'll have like, X person versus, the state of blank.
Yeah.
Or
Gideon v. Wainwright is a perfect example. We've seen it appear as a wrong answer a lot of times by now. That was a case out of Florida. And Wainwright I was an official of the Florida government.
Okay.
Not the state of Florida, because Florida actually does exercise its sovereign immunity. So it doesn't actually affect federal courts at all, if my understanding of it is correct.
This is honestly a really weird amendment. Like and it's a limit
that surprises most people when they hear it. It's like, wait, a state can just say no to a lawsuit? Yeah.
Like it seems like you think at some point, I don't know, it would have been changed. Like societally would have embraced the fact like you should be able to sue your own state.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of weird. Yeah.
Again, and it's surprising because a lot of states don't exercise the sovereign immunity right, strictly because there are so many ways to get around the 11th Amendment.
Yeah.
And still get your case heard because an individual cannot have sovereign immunity. Only a state can have sovereign immunity. So yeah, the 11th Amendment, one of the amendments of all time, which we care very much about. The 23rd Amendment gave residents of Washington, D.C. the right to do this. They have... I'll say that, yeah. Yeah, vote in presidential elections, and they've only ever voted for the Democratic Party. Every single time, interestingly, even though both the parties, especially the Republican Party, has changed a lot since then. They've always voted for Democrats, which I find very interesting.
So I'm assuming that amendment, I'm assuming it specifies DC, right? Because I don't think if you live in a territory that's not DC, like Puerto Rico, I'm pretty sure they can't vote in presidential elections if you're actually in Puerto Rico.
Correct. Let me find Amendment 23 real fast. Boom. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such a manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress in which the district would be entitled to if it were a state. So, because the amount of electors, it's your House Representative members plus 2, because plus 2 senators. And they said if it were a state, how many congressmen would it have, and then how many senators would it have? And so I believe it's still 3 or 4 electoral votes. Yeah, it's only for DC because for a long time they weren't allowed to vote for president, which is kind of funny in a small, twisted sort of way. Um, but the thing about like having like a city governor, like that's always kind of been a thing. There's always been somebody who Congress appoints to kind of do a lot of the day-to-day operations in DC. The 24th Amendment prohibits the use of what in federal elections? And this amendment has actually been more important than I think a lot of people would expect because it turns out this thing turns out poll taxes take a lot of freaking like ways. In fact, that literacy testing is interesting because I'm pretty sure it also says that. So you might actually be safe, Sean. Let me quickly pull up the 24th Amendment. Okay, no, literacy test was something else. No, Amendment 24 is only poll taxes. But yeah, that was it's mostly one of them things used in the South to keep poor people, aka minorities, from voting. Screwed up. I think we're on our last question, gentlemen. Which amendment sets presidential term limits?
Uh-oh. I lost connection.
What? No.
The last one.
It is the 22nd Amendment. The way I remember this one is I think timeline. The 21st Amendment was the FDR Amendment. The 22nd Amendment was the after FDR Amendment. Because the only amendment passed during his 4 goddamn terms was the 21st Amendment, which repealed the 18th Amendment. And then it was after FDR was served 4 terms and Harry Truman was president that they said, all right, we're putting in the 22nd Amendment. We're not doing this anymore. You know, we only want a couple terms. So. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. At least I was.
That was a solid Kahoot.
Yeah, shout out to Taylor. Like, she did not go easy on us. Who brings up the 11th Amendment? Weirdos like me. I think she covered a very good spread of the Constitution. I think this would be a good test of, general constitutional knowledge. Let me mute this. This is loud. And this would be a good test of constitutional knowledge, like in a broad sense over everything. I'm trying to think if there's anything she could have hit on that she didn't. At least anything that really matters. Maybe judiciaries could hit on that because the judiciary is like the powers of the federal judiciary is spread between 2 different articles, which is very strange because you have the Supreme Court, which is set up in Article 3, and that's all Article 3 does. But the federal trial and circuit courts are derived from Article 1. And in fact, Congress is actually given the power to create courts, federal courts, and also change the number of justices on the Supreme Court. They have that power, and they have used it before. And maybe we'll use it again. We never know. Hopefully not. But that. I guess that would be something maybe focus on. Maybe there's 1 or 2 amendments that are interesting. Since it didn't come up, I'll tell you a little bit about the 27th Amendment. The 27th Amendment was drafted alongside the original Bill of Rights, but it was never ratified. It was literally dormant for over 200 years before it was ratified because a disgruntled student from Texas basically did like a mini campaign to bully Congress into bullying a couple state legislatures into ratifying it that didn't before.
That's kind of awesome.
It is kind of awesome.
So what is the 27th Amendment?
The 27th Amendment states that if Congress adjusts the pay of Congress, that pay change does not kick in until after the next election. So they can only adjust the pay for the next Congress and not the current Congress.
That's you know what? I think it's pretty cool that kid did that, Yeah. He was so he was such a nerd about that one particular thing.
Well, and he was pissed off at his professor because he on a paper, I think he was a master's student. He was doing a capstone, and he basically was talking about, he was talking, or maybe it was a law student, I don't remember, but maybe he was an undergrad, I don't fully remember, but it was something about legal theory. And he said that in theory, you could ratify what was previously the 11th Amendment, or previously the 12th, going to be the 12th Amendment. You could ratify it to this day, because there were 12 Bill of Rights amendments. 2 of them didn't pass. One of them, thank God it didn't pass. That would have been hell. But he said, like, in theory, you could still ratify it if you wanted, because there was no set end date on it. It was in perpetuity. It was always on the table.
So once they proposed it in Congress, there wasn't like an expiration date on it. It was just dead in the water, but it was still there. Like they had done the work, and as long as the states ratified it, then it would have been put back.
And his professor gave him a C on this paper, because his professor thought that it was kind of jargoning, unnecessary, kind of nonsense. And so he literally just went on a campaign in various states, just to spite this professor, to say,
that's incredible.
And then they got it ratified, and now we have the 27th Amendment. And that professor actually the professor and the university gave him a post grade change on his capstone because of it. So what's
the other amendment? You mentioned there was like a bad amendment that.
Let me make sure that I remember exactly right. It's about apportionment. Bill of Rights. The original 12 amendments. Yes. The other one was how it said for every 30,000 people, there will be one representative in Congress. If this had been ratified, we would have
that would be terrible.
We would have over 6,000 congressmen in the modern day and age.
Wow.
So it's a really good thing that one did not pass, because that's too many congressmen.
Every 30,000 people. That's like a tiny number.
Yeah, I mean back then it was a big number, but I think enough people.
That's like two UCF apartment complexes.
Yeah, actually, that would be 2 congressmen representing every UCF student, because UCF has over 60,000 students. Actually, it might be 3, because it's, I think, 68,000 students total.
We'd have 3 representatives.
Isn't that insane?
In the National Congress.
Yeah, y'all's school, my alma mater, would be enough to constitute 3 congressmen under that original amendment if it were to pass. So I think that was the original Amendment 11, or was it number 2? Yeah, it was original Amendment 11. That one didn't make.
I know there's some countries out there that have like really big legislatures.
Yeah,
but like that would still be crazy. They would have probably had to adjust the population if they had done it like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Do you know what the current is there like a population specific number, or is it just like whatever the states decide to draw the districts as?
So it's not, the Constitution isn't actually very specific about how districting works until a case in the 50s called Baker v. Carr, which Earl Warren, the guy who wrote the Brown versus Board of Education decision, said was actually his most important decision, was Baker versus Carr. It was originally believed the federal government had no part to play at all when it came to districting and redistricting. It was thought that there was nothing they could do at all. That it was a purely political question, meaning like that is a question left to politicians and not objective enough to be courts. It's just a matter of policy. What we have now is roughly an equal population rule under Baker versus Carr, that it doesn't have to be perfect, but there has to be like some approximate equivalent voting strength between people of different districts. And this came up in Tennessee. This was another case of Tennessee exercising its sovereign immunity right and them suing the Secretary of State. But they originally had it. So there was one district that had like 100 times the population of every other district. It was just because it was the Nashville district. And because they had the most minorities, they packed every minority into one district. And so one vote from a rural white person was like 1,000 times more effective than one of them. And now that is unconstitutional. And furthermore, strictly racial gerrymandering is also now considered unconstitutional. Whether that is to disenfranchise them or to enfranchise them. This was the case in a case called Shaw v. Reno, which was coming out of North Carolina. So, yeah, it's interesting the way it all works. And Congress, and there's and as far as like deciding congressman goes, there's a census, and the government can kind of scale it, but everybody has to have equal enough representation, unless your state is so small. Okay, you live in like Wyoming or Rhode Island, that it's a bit more of an approximation. It's just kind of, you can't go below one representative. But yeah, that was Constitution trivia. Thank you to Taylor for putting this together. And it's sad that David couldn't be with us. I think that would have been very entertaining. Although then again, I would have had to pay a small amount of money to have him in. It's 4. So that would have been fun. But thank you, Kevin, Sean. Thank you very much. And this is a fun opportunity to kind of just discuss constitutional things with our audience. And if you did make it to the end and you watched, 3 Gen Z dudes, nerd out about Constitution, if that's something you enjoy, subscribe to this channel. Please like the video. Comment below. Was there anything that was interesting to you? Have we been wrong about anything? Is there something that you think is important that could have been covered? Let us know what you think. But yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. We are J&W, and we are out.